Letter 1, Excerpt 7. Summary. Jesus' early life. Jesus was not a saintly child. He was an individualist and unruly in behavior. As a youth, he became unmanageable, a true rebel. He refused to learn a trade, chose to mix with all of the poorer classes, drank with them, knew prostitutes, and enjoyed talking, arguing, laughing, and being bone idle. For all his many shortcomings, he cared about people very deeply. He was moved by their misery, sickness, and poverty. It infuriated him that they were nonetheless heartlessly browbeaten by Jewish leaders who threatened them with Jehovah's punishment if they did not obey. Jewish beliefs depicted an illogical, cruel God, and Jesus wanted nothing to do with him. But little by little he started to feel an all-consuming longing to know and understand the true nature of that which sustained and was behind creation. He reviews his life and sees all the suffering that his actions have caused. His underlying love for his family now wells up in him. Hears about John the Baptist and decides to visit him to be baptized. Feels exhilarated, for he was going to start a new life. Perhaps he could find a way to lighten the burdens of those whom he so deeply pitied. My early life and experiences in the desert. I was born in Palestine. My mother was convinced that I would be a Messiah. Contrary to popular belief, I was not a saintly child. When taken to the temple, aged 12 years old, to be interviewed by the chief priests to determine whether I would be fit to enter Jewish religious training, I was rejected as being too opinionated. Bitterly disappointed, my mother took me home again and did her best to raise me in the sanctity which marked her own demeanor at all times. This was an impossible task, for I was, above all things, an individualist and unruly in behavior. I resented my mother's guidance and her attempted discipline. As a youth, I became unmanageable, a true rebel. I rejected my mother's staunch adherence to the Jewish faith and traditions, preferring laughter to sanctimonious attitudes. I refused to learn a trade which would have bounded me down to routine. I chose to mix with all and sundry of the poorer classes, drank with them, knew prostitutes, and enjoyed talking, arguing, laughing, and being bone idle. When I needed money, I went into the vineyards for a day or two or took other jobs that paid me enough to eat and drink and give me the leisure I craved. For all my many shortcomings as a human being, my careless, easy, indolent attitudes, my self-will and egocentric determination to think my own thoughts, irrespective of what others might try to tell me, I cared about people very deeply. I was deeply emotional. In your present speech forms, you would call me overreactive, over-emotional. I had a warm, compassionate, empathetic heart. I was deeply moved in the presence of sickness, affliction, and poverty. I was a staunch supporter of what you call the underdog. You might say I was a people's person. I lived with them closely in a spirit of friendship. I listened to their woes, understood, and cared. It is important to understand my true origins and my earthly youthful characteristics, because these were the gods which pushed me and prodded me into eventual Christhood. What I most strongly detested and resisted was the misery, the sickness and poverty I saw around me. It infuriated me, and I became passionately, vociferously angry to see people dressed in rags, thin and hungry, diseased, crippled, yet heartlessly browbeaten by Jewish leaders who burdened them with meaningless traditional laws and observances, threatened them with Jehovah's punishment if they did not obey. I declared to all who would listen to me that these poor people had enough to bear without being crushed by senseless measures restrictive of pleasure. What was the point of life at all if we were not born to be happy? I refused to believe in a just God according to Jewish traditions. The biblical prophetic warnings of Jehovah's judgment and anger against people disgusted me. People were human, after all, doing whatever their human natures prompted them to do. They had been born sinful, so why should they be judged and condemned to lives of suffering and poverty because they had broken the 10 Commandments? Where was the sense in such statements? To me, this Jewish belief depicted an illogical, cruel God, and I wanted nothing to do with him. It seemed to me that if such a God existed, it followed that mankind was doomed to eternal misery. The simplicity and freedom I found on the hillsides, the plains, the lakes and the mountains refreshed my inmost spirit and quieted my angry murmuring against the Jewish God. Consequently, I refused to believe a word that the Jewish elders tried to teach me. However, during my middle 20s, a new line of questioning took possession of my thoughts. As I walked ever more frequently alone in the hills, my rebellion was gradually replaced by an all-consuming longing to know and understand the true nature of that which must surely inspire and aspire through creation. I reviewed my lifestyle and saw what suffering my actions had caused my mother and many other people. Although I felt such deep compassion for the weak and suffering, my rebellious nature had prompted much thoughtless and selfish behavior towards my family. My underlying love for them now welled up in me, and I found myself becoming equally rebellious against my past behavior. I heard talk about John the Baptist and the work he was doing amongst the Jews who came to listen to his words even from Jerusalem. I decided to visit him to be baptized myself. On my way to the River Jordan, I felt exhilarated at the prospect of being baptized and starting a new life. I knew that, despite my unruly emotionalism, I had also been born with a keen intelligence and a gift for insightful, impressive debate, which I had used willfully and negatively, leading people into unruly arguments. I had thrown my talents away by pursuing a life of self-will, idleness, and pleasure. As a result, I had forfeited all respect from others. Neither did I possess any self-respect. For the first time, I found this to be intolerable. It occurred to me that in the future, I could and must put my natural gifts to better use. Instead of just making noise, perhaps I could find a way to lighten the burdens of those whom I so deeply pitied. Up to that time, I had been of little practical use to anyone. Hello, hello! How are you doing, girls and guys? Here I am again, Michael's son, your friend, your brother. Okay? So, this is what we just read, Excerpt 7 of Letter 1, and there you have it. There you have the man, the real man, the real young boy, a true rebel, the real young man, the real person that walked among his fellow men in Palestine so many, many years ago. The real man. A man who was, despite all his shortcomings, as the Spirit tells us, deeply compassionate deeply emotional and moved for the suffering of his fellow beings. Okay? And a man like you and I that at some point in time questions his life and says, what am I doing with my life? Okay? Please, dear brother, dear sister, think about that. It is right there for you to read and reread. He was a man like you and I. Okay? This is just for today. Thanks so much for being here today with me. Please give me a like if you like this video. Hit the button below to subscribe to my channel. And many, many, many thanks for sharing with friends. Kisses and hugs to all. I truly love you. Bye bye. Hasta la vista, amigos.